again, so this is for the forestry work unit within Parks Operations of the City of Dublin. Basically who we are, what we do. We are the foresters for the City of Dublin. We have 6 full-time staff members. You're considered professionals in the art and science of tree care. So our main credential that most of us hold is as a certification is arborists, and it's mostly traditionally by trade what we're considered is arborists. But because we deal with lots of trees on a larger scale and treat it more of as an urban forest, we oftentimes call ourselves foresters. Just a brief overview of the city. I'm sure you probably heard a little bit about this from some of the other groups. A little over 48,000 residents as of right now, 400 full-time employees, 300 part-time employees. A lot of businesses and corporate headquarters here in the City of Dublin. It's one thing that I think gives the city kind of a lot of the resources that it has is the amount of businesses that are here and the types of businesses that are here. I'm sure you probably have all heard of or at least heard mentioned before the Dublin Irish Festival, as well as some of the other bigger events that are here in the city. One of the other things that City of Dublin is known for is it's the number of parks that we have and the initiative to kind of have as much of a connected city from a green perspective as possible. So if you ever get to see a map of the city at some point, you'll just see there's a large number of bike trails and greenways that all interconnect all these different parks and other green spaces and areas that are not only beneficial to the residents of the City of Dublin, but they're also beneficial to wildlife and other critters that find and make their home here in Dublin. One thing you probably didn't hear from some of the other groups is my department in particular, the forestry the work unit, we manage and maintain over 30,000 street trees. So that is a tree that is located in city right away in the area that you would recognize as between the curb and the sidewalk. So there are over 30,000 of those trees that we have planted, and there are more out there that aren't necessarily our jurisdiction. They're part of commercial properties and private property as well, but the stuff that we directly maintain currently is right around over 30,000 trees, which is a lot. We manage all those individually, especially with having 6 staff members full-time, including myself. I'm one of those 6. I'm the city forester. It's a lot of work, and that's where we rely on the seasonal help to really come in and help us make sure we're managing all of that, because it is quite a bit. You may have seen this before as well, but thought I would like to hit on it just because it's an important piece of if you're considering coming on to working for the city. Is there is an expectation when you work in public service. You're there, as the word implies, to serve the public. You're serving the community that you're working for. We take a lot of pride in that. We do everything as best we can to the most excellent achievement that we possibly can strive to within the means of our skills and abilities. We always love to try to go above and beyond whenever possible, but it also means that we do so ethically and accountably, whether it's from a budgetary standpoint, not spending dollars irresponsibly, but also, following best practices, doing things the right way, and not just doing something just to get it done, but doing it so it's done well and done right for the residents and for everybody that's there to benefit from the services we provide. So for you guys, seasonal opportunities, obviously, if you saw the application or if you looked into these roles prior to at all, the position title is a seasonal maintenance worker. And with that, there's a lot of different work units and departments you could work in under that title, but if you were to come on with forestry, this is basically what you'd be doing every day. So what we do is considered urban forestry work-related practices, and that includes pretty heavily pruning on street trees, planting trees and other plants, removal of trees and stumps, and plant health care, which is fertilization, fighting off pests and diseases, that sort of thing. Um, we plant roughly 500 to 600 trees every year in both the spring and fall. So those are big parts of the year that you guys, as seasonal employees, would take a big part in. We also try to prune somewhere in the neighborhood between 3 and 5,000 trees a year, which is also a large number that is taken on by the seasonal staff as well as full-time staff. Removal of trees, obviously, it's not the most desirable thing that we want to do when we're trying to promote, green practices and all that, but it is a necessary evil at times. Trees do die; they are living things, so, and we kind of put them in the worst environment that they have to live in the city, so they will eventually die. So that is a practice that we have to do from time to time, which you guys would definitely get some experience to be involved with. And plant health care is a very important one for us as well. If you've ever heard of emerald ash borer, it was a pretty devastating insect pest that came through central Ohio and has now moved across the country for the most part. It's not so much as big of a problem here now as it was around 2008, 2010-ish, but we still have an ongoing program to prevent any further devastation from that on city trees. So that's a big program that happens in the middle of summer that you guys could also be a part of. And it's a pretty unique and cool opportunity. Biggest requirements for all this for me, I just went through all those different job tasks that you may be involved in. It sounds like, that there's a lot of training and prior work experience that would be preferred on that. And to be quite frank, yes, that would be preferred, but it's not a requirement for me. Biggest requirement for me is just coming in with the hard work ethic, open mind, willingness to learn, and that teamwork mentality. We work together as a team on a daily basis. Even so now with social distancing and all that stuff going on, we still have to work as a team, and we have a lot of big goals that we try to achieve every year, and our seasonal employees are a really big part of that. So those are the key ones for me, and I will also emphasize the hard work ethic. What my work unit does day in and day out is not easy. It's not a walk in the park by any means. When you come here every day, you're probably going to be exhausted by the end of the day. I know a lot of times some of our advertising may not portray that necessarily, so I just want to make sure people are aware it's hard work, but it's also very fulfilling work. I will say that. That's why I built my career working in this field, is that it's not only a lot of hard work, but it's very fulfilling. There's a good purpose behind it, which is why I enjoy it. So, timeline for me. So my schedule's maybe worked up a little bit sooner than some of the other departments if you guys are considering your potential employment here at the city. I'm looking more so to kind of fill some positions as soon as possible. I have, at this moment in time, I will say at least 3 positions that I would like to fill. That would be what is considered a full-time seasonal employee. So I'm sure you've probably heard this by now, but I'll reiterate. We have a longer season than a lot of other city programs or other areas. We have about a 9-month seasonal program. And that's my main goal, is to fill those positions. It's not to say that I'm not open or have availability for shorter stints of time. There are possibilities for summertime help for those of you that may be in college or in school or have another work situation where you're off in the summer and that's your time to work, or off another part of the year and that's your time to work. That's definitely a possibility that I would speak to those individuals about. But for right now, kind of what I'm mainly looking for is those long-term seasonals to be here the majority of the year. My work unit, we've been moving towards a a schedule where my seasonal employees are mostly working all the way through the winter, aside from a few weeks, and then also working mostly all through spring into the early summer and having a short stint of time off then, and then working through the fall and the early winter again. So it's almost year round for this group. At least that's the goal, because we have year round work. Work doesn't shut down in any part of the year for us. It's pretty much all year round for us to meet our goals. Our work schedule is Monday through Friday. We are 6:45 to 3:15. We do take lunch at 11:15 every day, and because of social distancing and all that stuff going on, we do stick to that pretty well, just because we don't want a big mass of people all in one space at one time. And Duraj, I think I just saw you had a question that came up there.
I was asking like how flexible is it? Like, you know how you said it was like longer than most, the season is longer than most of the other jobs. So
Yeah,
I was just wondering like how flexible is it? So you know how during school you have different breaks.
right.
So I'm probably just gonna work in the summer, but I might think of working during the breaks if I have time. Like, is that possible or?
Um, that is definitely a possibility, and that'd be something we could speak to if you decide to apply and we do an interview. We can talk further about that. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty flexible with my seasonal staff. Um, I try to keep it as consistent of a schedule as possible. It just makes, for one, my life easier, and it makes everybody's lives easier because everybody is there at the same time. We can all be productive when we're all there. It gets a lot harder when we're missing a few people because they had to go to school or whatever other, priorities they had to take care of, which, it's definitely not a negative thing, but it just makes things flow a lot better for everybody if everybody can be on a consistent schedule. But again, I'm also flexible to people's needs. So if there was that opportunity that you saw that, hey, I'm on break and it's going to be maybe a significant amount of time, I wouldn't rule that out as a possibility. Um, I would say I'm a little bit more flexible than probably some of the other work units within the city, just because of our goals and our job responsibilities and the way I try to make sure I have people in place to get these things done. Some of the other work units are a little bit more rigid in their timelines. Um, but yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility. That's a good question. Thank you for asking that. And just so you're aware too, I hopefully I didn't misspoke or didn't mislead you. My seasonal program is not any longer than any of the other seasonal programs within the city. We all have to fall within the same number of hours to work. So I don't want to give the illusion that you come to work for me, you're going to get more hours or anything like that. That's not necessarily the case. And I guess I shouldn't speak too broadly on that either. I'm assuming rec services and those groups all fall under the same timelines, but at least from a park operations standpoint, from our division, um, we all work under the same amount of hours. So I don't want to mislead that or make you think you're going to get more hours just by coming to work for me. Um, but yeah, so thank you for that question. Um, we do have the potential for overtime for sure. We have a lot of work that goes on throughout the year, and there's a lot of opportunities for that to come up. I know in this recent year we had some constraints on that just with everything going on, but there's a possibility of that coming for this year. One thing I do want to make note of is that you are off on holidays, but it is not a paid holiday for the seasonal position. That is a very common question that I get about it. But so if you come and work through the summer, if you want to be off for the 4th of July, you'll be most likely be off for the 4th of July. Um, but it is not a paid holiday for the seasonal employees. Anybody else have any questions so far? Because I'm almost done here.
The other divisions with this, they had an age requirement of 18. Does this have that too or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's for a lot of the work we do, it is a requirement for you to be 18 years or older. And then also, because of our work schedules and the demands of our work schedule, it becomes much harder to deal with those that may be in high school and of that age range. It's a good question. So from here, the next steps obviously would be, if you have any interest, would be putting in an application if you haven't already done so. We can set up the possibility of an interview, whether it's virtual. We discuss maybe doing some drive-through opportunities, or even if I'm open to phone interviews. I did a lot of my interviews last year via phone. Um, Obviously, putting a face to a name and seeing each other in person is always best, but it's not a necessity right now. And Daraj, I just saw your question there. Rachel, I don't know if you saw that. When is the deadline? Do we have a deadline right now?
Yes, coming up, I think I set it to expire the 12th, so next Friday, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. But we might post another after that, just to see, depending on how many applications we get. But you can expect, I think, some other applications after February 12th as well on that
Right.
website.
Yeah. I think it all kind of depends on the applicants that we receive and the amount of positions we're able to fill out of those applicants. So, if I fill my need, if I don't fill my need by that date, I'm probably going to ask Rachel and HR to post the position again. So therefore, we could have somebody else. So if now is not the right time for you to apply, you don't feel good enough about it. But if something changes later on, it's always good to check back in and see if the position's still available. Again, kind of my goal is to hire people sooner than later, because I have staff returning and working here in the next week, seasonal staff that is, and we're hitting the ground running back at pruning right now. Winter's a big time and a good time to prune trees. So we're hitting that pretty hard right now, and I have some positions to fill to meet those goals, which obviously if you're in school right now, it may not be the best time for you currently though. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Am I missing anybody else on the call here? There is a caller.
Do you have 3 people total?
Okay. Well,
Brian, did you hit on like training at all? And if you like talked about the job training, what that looks like?
yeah, that's a good question. It's actually something I didn't hit on, and I probably should have put in there.
Good.
but but we do provide a lot of hands-on and classroom style training in-house. So that's, again, for me, I think I did touch on the fact that it's not as much of a requirement for you to have skill sets and these trainings before you come on, because we're going to provide that for you. We're going to make sure you're trained on everything that you're going to be doing before you do anything. Because otherwise, obviously you're not going to be able to do as good a good job as we would like you to. How long is the training? It's not necessarily like you come in and get into a training period, so to speak, where you're just locked into just training for just that period of time, and you're there for weeks or anything like that. A lot of the training does come from on the job direct experience. I would expect, though, when you first start, you're probably going to have at least 1 to 2 days of where you're doing primarily training related activities, where we're going to have you come in and do things that are not only just compliance related for our things on the city, but then also we're going to have you get into some of the basic activities or what you're going to expect to see here in the next few days if you were to get assigned to working with staff and the crews and performing those tasks that they're out there doing. So, for instance, if you started right now and my staff is heavily into pruning right now, one of the first things we dive into with you is proper pruning techniques. We have some online learning things that we'll go through with you that give you just kind of a broad overview of the techniques behind pruning, the why of what we're doing, and then we'll actually take you in the field and perform those things. And we do deal with a lot of dangerous equipment at times. So we want to make sure you are experienced and have enough knowledge of the safety practices and training behind using those pieces of equipment before we allow you to just take the reins and go off running on your own. We're very safety focused in my work unit specifically and across the city. So it's very important. Thank you for that question, Rachel, and thank you, Duraj, for following up on that. Does anybody else have any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Last thing for me, I just want to provide you guys with my contact info. Take a picture of it, snapshot it, whatever. I'm pretty open to whatever you guys have question-wise or anything. So if anything comes up, just let me know. You can give me a call whenever. You can shoot me an email whenever. I'm open to that sort of thing if there's any questions after this. Or if you just have more questions about our department and what we do or just have a general interest in that, I'm also open for that. But again, thank you guys for taking the time today to hop on this. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully it was enjoyable, and hopefully I didn't talk too much and bore you. So thank you guys.